So good morning or afternoon, everyone. I'm Megan Matheson. I'm the co-lead of the Canadian Marine Shipping Risk Forum and also the Director of Strategy and Engagement for Clear Seas. This session will be recorded and posted on our website along with presentation slides after this session, and everyone who's registered will be notified when the recording is available. So if you missed it, you'll be able to catch up. Before we get started with the presentation today, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that I'm joining from the traditional ancestral lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations and express my gratitude for their stewardship of the lands and waters in this area since time immemorial. And I'd like to invite everyone who's joining here to take a moment also to reflect on the lands and waters where you're situated and the role that Indigenous people have had in caretaking and protecting the area for millennia. Now, for a few brief introductions. First, the Canadian Marine Shipping Risk Forum is a community of practice that is hosted by MEOPAR, the Marine Environmental Observation, Prediction and Response Network, and Clear Seas. The community of practice is open to all who are interested in the work of understanding and mitigating shipping risk. Thank you so much for joining this session, which is part of our Beyond the Horizon webinar series focused on technology and its role in mitigating shipping risks. If you missed any of the previous sessions, you can find them on the Clear Seas website, and I'll put a link into the chat in case you are interested. So this series is focused on investigating different ways that technology is being applied to understand the marine environment, with a particular focus on the activity and impacts of vessels, both those that are using automatic identification system, AIS, and those that don't use AIS. As a result of this knowledge sharing, we hope that community of practice members can apply a range of technologies in new ways to address information needs for a safer marine environment. I'd like to ask participants to remain muted for the presentation, but after you are encouraged to raise your hand and unmute to ask any questions, or if you prefer, you can type your questions into the chat and I will read it out. So our agenda today, we have a presentation from Krista Foster with GSTS on predictive insights using OCIANA for collaborative and just-in-time maritime operations. So a little bit about the project. Back in 2024, in March, Canada's Ocean Supercluster announced funding for a project with GSTS, Canada Steamship Lines, Montreal Port Authority, the Laurentian Pilotage Authority, and Clear Seas. And the project was empowering maritime collaboration with AI-powered intelligence. So using the OCIANA platform, the objective was to develop and implement a collaborative berth scheduler, a solution to connect ships, pilotages, and ports to provide optimal berth schedule management, or the equivalent of an air traffic control system for ships. This advancement in digitization is going to empower increased maritime collaboration, the enablement of digital corridors, facilitation of just-in-time operations, and optimized management of resources to minimize emissions, reduce fuel consumption, and decrease wait times. So I'd like to now introduce our presenter, Krista Foster. She's the Director of Products at GSTS, and she's going to provide an overview of the project's progress and demonstrate how OCIANA can be applied with novel AI algorithms to improve the efficiency of the maritime supply chain. Krista brings over 20 years of IT professional experience in executive project management, product lifecycle management, and business analysis. Over the past 17 years, Krista has worked almost exclusively with commercial product vendors who require her expertise in identifying business needs and determining solutions to complex business problems. Krista has worked in both Fortune 500 and startup organizations. Krista, I'd like to hand over to you to take us through the Collaborative Berth Scheduler.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I really appreciate it. Let me share my screen. All right. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes, looks good to go.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right. Okay, so today I'll be talking about how predictive insights support collaboration and just-in-time arrivals by providing real-time, accurate, sorry. I have to minimize something. Sorry. Sorry. Today I'll be talking about how predictive insights support collaboration and just-in-time arrivals by providing real-time data and accurate predictions, enabling stakeholders to optimize schedules, reduce delays, and improve overall supply chain efficiency. This includes things such as optimizing vessel speeds, reducing fuel consumption, and improving port calls. First, a little about GSTS. GSTS is a global maritime AI solutions provider spun out of a Canadian space company where GSTS CEO led the team that designed, developed, and launched the first commercial global maritime monitoring satellite. GSTS, as a proprietary SaaS platform, OCIANA, designed to enhance real-time decision-making and enable data sharing and collaboration to support the safety, efficiency, and sustainability of maritime operations. OCIANA incorporates the latest developments in artificial intelligence and big data analytics. It was designed to ingest and process a wide range of data sources including global AIS data, a wide array of satellite imagery, weather data, and more. Data currently stored in separate systems is brought together in one system to provide decision-making intelligence in real time. An embedded communications channel and advanced chat and collaboration tools also allow multiple users to share information in real time. OCIANA is deeply rooted in data governance. Significant time has gone into ensuring everything from data quality to data security to managing and controlling data access permissions. This diagram visually represents OCIANA as a federated data platform, ingesting multiple data sources, such as vessel characteristics, weather data, protected species, and more. OCIANA is currently ingesting more than 20 data sets. First, data validation focuses on ensuring that data meets predefined rules and standards before it is ever stored and used for analysis. Once data is stored, AI algorithms running in the background provide real-time predictive insights. Predictive insights have wide-ranging applications, including risk and compliance management, schedule optimization, and environmental performance management, to name just a few. OCIANA can be deployed whole, or the output from the various AI models can be integrated with existing systems such as Port of Montreal's PMIS and associated terminal operating systems. Many of the capabilities developed on the OCIANA platform are the result of more than 5 years of successful collaboration with key maritime players. Key maritime players such as the Port of Montreal, the Laurentian Pilotage Authority, Canada Steamship Lines, and Clear Seas, to name just a few. The Port of Montreal has been instrumental in the development of the ETA predictions, which today accurately predicts all vessels arriving at port up to 28 days out. The port has also helped develop the environmental performance management capabilities, including a GHG emissions calculator and digitized trade routes that report on the performance of green shipping corridors. The Laurentian Pilotage Authority were key in the development of the intelligent geofences. Intelligent geofences automatically notifies users when a vessel crosses predefined checkpoints, also providing ETA predictions to subsequent checkpoints, as well as to the destination port. Here, you will see some of the other customers and collaborators who have helped develop the various capabilities. CSL were key in developing vessel analytics and grounding risk assessment. The Port of New York, New Jersey helped develop port analytics related capabilities. Capabilities such as berth management and anchorage management. The Port of Vancouver remained key in the development of anchorage demand forecasting and port profiles. Other collaborators on the government side, such as CBSA and the RCN, have helped to develop the risk and compliance management related capabilities. Capabilities such as dark vessel detection, path prediction, and rendezvous detection, again, to name just a few. This diagram visually represents some of the various data sets that Oceana is ingesting and the AI-powered capabilities, as well as the maritime stakeholders accessing these capabilities today, either via Oceana directly or via an API into another system. As Megan mentioned, in March 2024, Canada's Ocean Supercluster awarded GSTS a $12 million two-year contract to advance the capabilities of Oceana. More specifically, the capabilities that facilitate data sharing and empower maritime collaboration. The project was awarded in partnership with Canada Steamship Lines and in collaboration with the Port of Montreal, the Laurentian Pilotage Authority, and Clear Seas. Since then, the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation has been added to the OSC project consortium, as well as the ports of Quebec and Trois-Rivières. Working together, Oceana's latest capability, the Collaborative Optimization Solution, will improve efficiency and sustainability of all maritime operations. The Collaborative Optimization Solution, or the COS for short, will connect ports, terminals, ships, waterways, and pilotage via a common platform, Oceana. Again, data currently stored in separate systems will be brought together in one system to provide data-driven decision-making intelligence in real time. To ensure seamless data exchange and interoperability with all the different systems, Oceana was designed from the ground up based on IMO standards and DCSA open API specifications for just-in-time port calls. As just mentioned, the COS will allow all maritime stakeholders to exchange data in real time. Data-driven, AI-powered predictive insights will enable coordinated planning and enhance decision-making. In the end, facilitating just-in-time arrivals aimed at enabling ships to optimize steaming speed, minimize time at anchor, decrease fuel consumption, and reduce inherent emissions. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see 5 relevant UN Sustainability Development Goals. The Port of Montreal and GSTS were recognized by the World Ports Sustainability Program last fall for all the work we're doing on the Ocean Supercluster project. Our project was recognized as one of the top 3 out of 71 total submissions in the digitalization category. Here is another simplified diagram showing Oceana again as a federated data platform, this time integrating operational data from multiple systems, terminal operating systems, port management information systems, pilot dispatch, etc. Oceana spatially and temporally correlates all this data along with other external data sources such as weather and employs AI algorithms in the background. Output from these models provide real-time data insights to all maritime stakeholders, including, but certainly not limited to, ship owners and operators, ship agents, pilots, and harbor masters. Some examples of real-time data insights include delays in vessel movements or resource availability, and the recommended speed to arrive just in time to make a revised berthing time window, either because the ETD of the vessel currently at berth has changed, or the pilot is delayed arriving at the pilot boarding station, for example. Data insights are displayed in Oceana's web-based application, but they are also made available via API. Email and mobile alerts and notifications are also an option. To summarize, the key objective is to connect all maritime stakeholders to facilitate data sharing and empower collaboration. In doing so, all stakeholders will receive more accurate information on vessel movements and resource delays in real time. Again, enhancing planning and coordination, streamlining vessel berthing to support just-in-time arrivals. Real-time decision-making intelligence will be used to support route optimization towards green voyages in all dynamic environments. Expected outcomes include reduction of delays for all stakeholders, improved transit times for ships, decreased wait time at anchor, reduced fuel consumption and GHG emissions, streamlined vessel reporting, and increased berth occupancy. Operational validation testing of OCIANA's collaborative optimization solution is scheduled to commence this spring, likely in the June timeframe. For the remaining time of this presentation, and before we get into some questions, I'm going to switch gears a little and walk through a few of the screens being developed as part of the collaborative optimization solution. A full demonstration of OCIANA and the collaborative optimization solution would take a lot more time than we have today. However, our contact information is at the end of this presentation, which Megan will be posting. So if anyone is interested, please contact us and we can certainly schedule a time to do a live demonstration. So one of the screens that has garnered a lot of attention is the incoming vessel screen. This screen shows all incoming vessels, in this case to the Port of Montreal. It includes vessels scheduled to arrive, as well as those vessels that may not be scheduled to arrive or the port doesn't know about. These vessels could be the ones that have self-reported as going to the Port of Montreal, or they could be vessels GSTS predicts are going to the Port of Montreal based on past behavior or known service routes. If there are vessels incoming that the port is not expecting, then an alert notification is sent and a warning sign displays on the screen as well. An alert notification is also sent if there are vessels scheduled to arrive at a certain time, according to the schedule entries screen, but according to GSTS ETA predictions, they are not going to make it in time for their berthing time window. On the screen, you'll also see a number of checkpoints. These checkpoints are predefined by the port and change dynamically based on the direction of the vessel. You'll also see an ETA prediction for when the vessel is expected to pass each of the checkpoints. Checkpoints can be anywhere, including a pilot boarding station, a lock, or of course the destination port. Once a vessel crosses a checkpoint, the ETA becomes the ATA. The actual time of arrival is indicated by a green box and a white check mark. This next screen is a schedule entry screen, which I mentioned in the previous slide. This screen shows all the vessels scheduled to arrive or depart the Port of Montreal. It also includes the proforma, if applicable, the initial booking request, and any change requests. All change requests, whether they are initiated by the port, the terminal, the shipping line, or the pilotage. If a change request is submitted, it is sent to the appropriate organization or organizations for approval automatically. However, all stakeholders with the appropriate permissions are able to see that a change request has been submitted, by whom, to whom, and the pending status. Stakeholders can choose to submit requests via API through another system, such as an initial booking request can be entered into the system via the Port of Montreal's PMIS system. Alternatively, for a smaller port, it can be entered directly into OCIANA's web-based application. Data insights and status changes are also made available via API and displayed in another system. Of course, this is in addition to being displayed in OCIANA. I'm going to move next to the Gantt chart screen, which is a published version by the port. So a published version of the schedule entry screen for all stakeholders with the appropriate permissions to view and interact with. So the Gantt chart is where all stakeholders, again, with the appropriate permissions, can submit an initial booking request, submit a pilot request, submit a change request, make a comment, upload documents such as a pre-arrival notice, a voyage planning form, or any other required clearance document. A user would simply right-click on the applicable time window and choose the action. For example, submit change request. If there is a pending change request, it will be visible on the screen. Different colors mean different things. For example, the green block indicates a confirmed time. The pink block indicates an initial booking request has been submitted, but it's not yet been accepted or rejected. The orange block indicates that there was a confirmed time, however, there is a pending change request. And last but not least, the purple block indicates a perform as scheduled, so no initial booking request has been submitted yet. Again, all of these changes or notices of change are sent via API. They're also sent via email or mobile. And of course, they're displayed in OCIANA's web-based application. One final screen I want to mention is the pre-arrival notification. The pre-arrival notification is an optional component of the booking request. Similarly for the voyage planning form, which would get sent to the pilots for pilot recommendations. I guess I'll now open it up for questions. I'll stop sharing my screen and hand it back to Megan. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending.
Thanks so much, Krista. That's fascinating. And yeah, so many questions, and I'm sure people in the audience do as well. So while people think of their questions, I'll just remind you, if you'd like to ask them directly, feel free to raise your hand, unmute. You can come on video if you like, or not, or if you'd rather put your questions into the chat, feel free to do that, and I can read the questions out. So to start off, collaboration is really essential in a project of this nature, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Can you describe some of the challenges you encountered in advancing this work over the past year?
I think probably the biggest challenge has been getting all of the members of the OSC project consortium together. Everybody is very busy, so getting them together is the first challenge. And then I think when you do get everybody together, there's always differences of opinions or differences in how each organization defines terminology. For example, ETA. Everyone, defines ETA differently. ETA to the pilot boarding station, ETA to the berth, ETA to the port bounds, just one example. So I think getting everyone to agree on exactly what certain terms mean. Of course, having Oceana developed on the IMO standards certainly helps, because you can leverage those definitions for the maritime terms. And I think also not only the terminology, but the processes. Everyone is quite familiar with their own process. It works great, but it is not integrated with other processes of other organizations that you need to coordinate with on a regular basis to make everything more efficient. So I think, there are some changes to each of the processes that has to be made in order for all of the process to work together in a digital system.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be quite challenging. People is like, this works for me. I want to keep doing it this way. And
exactly.
Everybody has to change a little bit. When you first started this project, what was the intention? Like, who did you think would most benefit from this new capability? And has that expectation changed as you've gone through the development process?
Yeah, I think when we first started, conceptualizing the project, it was initially with the Port of Montreal and the Laurentian Pilotage Authority, and it was all about moving vessels in and out of the port and coordinating with the Pilotage Authority to make things more efficient. Recognizing that making things more efficient would later support just-in-time arrivals and whatnot. So that was kind of where it started. And then we also have a great relationship with Canada Steamship Lines, of course, and they had approached us about a very similar project about data sharing and collaboration, but it was from a different angle. It was from the perspective of, we all share the data and collaborate, then we will be able to, do better route optimization towards green voyages and arrive just in time. So from a shipping perspective, you're decreasing fuel consumption, but more importantly, you're decreasing GHG emissions. And then in turn, it also facilitating, decrease in wait time at anchor, increase in turnaround time at the berth. So it kind of came together and converged. So I saw it, initially as a port pilotage, and then it was kind of more all about, the shipping lines, or just as much about the shipping lines. And then we started to bring in other organizations such as Clear Seas that also has interest, from an environmental side. And of course now, there's the interest from, some government organizations that typically have used our software for risk and compliance, that are now looking at our software as more of a way of data sharing and collaborating, and maybe, one day, maybe even supporting the maritime single window, since we are able to upload those documents associated with the port call.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question.
Oh, sorry.
Since Canada is not yet at the point where we have a maritime single window, but it is recognized as something that we are required to have and would be very beneficial for facilitating a more efficient flow of ships in and out of Canadian waters. Yeah, that's great to hear that there could be an opportunity for OCIANA to be part of that solution.
Absolutely.
Let's see, what else? Not seeing any hands raised yet. I was wondering, when you mentioned, you've got about 20 data sets that come into the OCIANA platform, and they go through a validation process to make sure you can rely on what's there before you make use of it. Are there any data sets that you would like to have but don't yet have because they're too difficult to verify or access?
I think if you probably ask anyone in the industry, including, the people that are, involved in the members of the OSC consortium, it's access to cargo or commodity data, sooner than it's actually made available to different organizations. Of course, we understand the reason why that isn't shared readily, unless, you are working with that organization, tightly. It's because of the commercial sensitivity, but it definitely plays a part, the cargo and commodity data. We do get some cargo and commodity data, for example, for the port of from the Port of Vancouver, but of course that is not to be displayed to other organizations, of course. Of course, Port of Montreal, we're also getting it from, but again, there is benefit to having that information shared, not just shared with GSTS for, our own reporting or providing data insights solely to one organization. But I don't think the industry is there yet. But I think eventually more and more information will be shared. It's just not there yet.
And that kind of leads to my next question, which is about, you mentioned that there are different levels of access or visibility. So permissions are established for different users to what they can see and not see. Who establishes the permissions? Like, who decides who's allowed to see what? Does each user kind of come in and say, this is what I'm willing to share to everybody, this is what must remain private to this certain group? And then do people have a level of confidence that will be maintained?
Yeah, it's on the organizational level. So an organizational admin would, of course, not only set up role-based permissions for their own users within their own organization, but then also decide which data they want to share or publish, which is a little different than sharing the data with participating organizations. So the Port of Montreal can choose to publish their schedule to Canada Steamship Lines and Laurentian Pilotage Authority, but they may choose to share specific geofences, for example, with the Laurentian Pilotage Authority, so that they in turn can get notifications, but perhaps they don't want to share them with, some other organization. So that would be on them to set up, of course, with our support. I think the relationship that we've had with the Royal Canadian Navy for many years has instilled some confidence in organizations that we are keeping the data secure, and that it is, only shared with those people that have the permissions to see that data, as of course is very important on the risk and compliance side, not to share data.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really key consideration. And I know that matters for a wide range of people to know that you've got the confidence in the system, that what you want to be shared will be shared reliably so that people can make those collaborative decisions, but then also things that are more sensitive can be kept, you know, not shared.
Yes.
You mentioned that there was a little difference for some smaller ports, like maybe a less expensive system for those maybe don't have the same level of traffic as, say, Port of Montreal does. Is there like a light version that people can use of this platform if they don't have this, don't reach a certain threshold of traffic?
Yep. Yeah, today the system is the system. Moving forward, there is the notion of feature flagging. So certain features can be turned off for certain organizations and left on for others. But outside of that, we do have the notion that there is a larger value in the system and for the maritime industry as a whole, if the more organizations that are on the system, it's like the Facebook or the network effect. Right? One port gives you so much value with the shipping line, and a pilotage having 2 or 3 or 6 or 10 ports gives you more, and then more shipping lines are, more enticed to come on. So there's certainly value for the whole maritime industry, as well as, of course, for GSTS. So everything we do, we keep in mind that we need to be able to have it be done in OCIANA. Like, so a ship agent could come into OCIANA, they can submit a booking request. For example, Port of Trois-Rivières doesn't have a port management information system. They would direct their ship agents to OCIANA to enter an initial booking request, and the process takes off from there, all the collaboration. Port of Montreal, of course, the larger port, they have their PMIS. Ship agents would be directed to their PMIS, enter the booking request, and that is automatically sent via API into OCIANA, and the process kicks off. So I think the key is all the capabilities that we have, we need to ensure that they're not only able to be accessed and used in OCIANA for the smaller ports, they're also able to be integrated with existing systems. Because people don't want to throw away systems that they, just paid millions of dollars to implement. It's just, it's unrealistic to expect.
But that does sound like a great advantage for, entities that don't have systems in place, that they could make use of these systems that have already been built and are proven to be effective across a range of different
Absolutely.
players.
It's actually one of the reasons that the Port of Montreal has, of course, an electronic pre-arrival notification, which was, initially being hosted on their site, and they realized that there is benefit to moving that into OCIANA because it allows other smaller ports like the Port of Trois-Rivières, of course, which they're very close with, to use the electronic pre-arrival notification in OCIANA and not just have it be available for the Port of Montreal on their own site. So we're seeing a lot of collaboration amongst the initial OSC project members, but also new members joining the same level of collaboration, and new capabilities and new modules being introduced as a result of those organizations being willing to share more as the project progresses.
That's great. And I think that's a real advantage for in Canada, we have quite a range of ports authorities and port entities or terminals that some of them are very large and very busy, and they have built their own systems, but there's lots that are smaller and may not have that capability established yet. That's exciting. When you were talking about the incoming vessels screen, you were talking about some vessels that were maybe scheduled or weren't yet scheduled, and the system might speculate as to, this ship that's not scheduled is probably or could still be coming. When you include that in the system, is there a likelihood percentage of, we think that there's a 80% likelihood that this vessel is actually coming to the Port of Montreal, and then is there a follow-up or a verification process with that to kind of check in, are you actually coming to Port of Montreal, or are you going to go by or something like that?
Yeah, there is a visual warning that shows that it is a prediction, not an actual scheduled entry, but that's a great idea about the percentage, because sometimes the percentage is greater. We're predicting with greater certainty because of known service routes, where sometimes that's not the case. It's not a known service route, but based on past behavior, we are predicting it's coming to Port of Montreal, so that would have a lower percentage. So that's a great idea that will will consider, but definitely the idea, because we had talked about on the incoming screens initially about if there's an incoming vessel coming in, whether it's self-reported or whether it is predicted by GSTS, if it is not scheduled, to automatically add it to the schedule entries screen so that nobody has to take, action. But then we were like, well, sometimes, vessels self-report is going somewhere and they don't show up, or we predict that they're coming and they don't show up. So the option was to send an alert notification, have a visual indicator, and a simple way for them to, click a button that says move to the schedule entry screen, so they don't have to do any, manual data entry of the incoming vessel to apply to the schedule entry screen, but there is some manual intervention.
Great. So then you don't have the risk of, they've scheduled a vessel that isn't actually coming, and then everybody's like, why does this vessel not show up? Yeah, a little bit like some of the whale alert systems where you have what likelihood is this that this is actually a whale, and then somebody verifies and says, yes, that's a whale, and you should slow down now. A little bit of human interface is sometimes needed.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's data insights, predictive data insights, but it's really decision-making intelligence, right? It's like the operator or the user can choose to do with that information what they choose, right? It's like if a vessel is, at berth and, it's supposed to leave at, 3 o'clock, but, we're now predicting it's not going to depart till 6 o'clock. And we notify, the incoming vessel that your berthing time window is not going to be available when you first thought it was going to be. We suggest, slowing down to this speed, given current conditions, and arrive just in time. It's really data insights, and what they choose to do with that is entirely up to them. Ideally, we want them to slow down, arrive just in time, and, reduce GHG emissions and make things more efficient and sustainable. But, not to say that they're always going to do that.
Yeah, there could be factors influencing the voyage that you don't know about, and maybe somebody got sick and they need to get to their anchor spot and get that person off. Could be anything, but yeah, that's at Clear Seas, we're a strong supporter of the concept that better information leads to better decisions, and the more collaborative and more open we can be with information, the better decisions everybody can make. So yeah, this is really exciting to see this coming into being. What else? I think there was one other question that I wanted to ask. Yeah, so you mentioned that there was sort of the core group of people who started off the project with you, and then as you got through, more partners came on, more interest started to come up. Do you think there's anybody else who's not currently part of the system that could benefit from it, or are there people that you're hoping to reach out to test it, and when you get to the testing phase?
Yeah, we're just, I believe earlier this week, maybe even just yesterday, sent out an email invite to a number of organizations to be part of the OSC Observer Group, so they could observe what we're doing at regular intervals, how our operational validation testing is going, and then at a later phase, once the initial operational validation testing is complete, possibly bringing those organizations in to do further testing. So, including other shipping lines, other ports, government organizations, pilots themselves outside of the pilotage. So absolutely, I think anyone in the maritime industry can benefit from OCIANA and data sharing and collaboration, even if it is something, I'm going to say something as simple as, but it's quite important, a spill outside of a port is, right now it's being reported, of course, rightfully so, to the Canadian Coast Guard, and there is notifications sent out, bulletins, it's posted on websites for everyone to be aware of. But in OCIANA, there is the concept of incident files. So an incident file could be, filled out by a port, and that could automatically go to the Canadian Coast Guard once it's given their stamp of approval, or they add, their information to that same file. It could then be shared with others on the system. So I think anyone in the maritime industry can benefit from OCIANA and sharing data and collaborating.
Definitely. Could you talk a little bit more about the testing process? Like, how long is that going to take? How many entities will be involved? Will you run like different scenarios to see how well it works? And yeah.
Yeah, the biggest operational validation test will be really to see if there are delays that are communicated in real time and speed recommendations are provided to slow down and arrive just in time to reduce time at anchor and get the berth when the berth's available, if that's actually followed. And if in turn it leads to a decreased fuel consumption and also reduced GHG emissions, not only for the vessel voyage, but also for the port themselves, because of the decreased time, of course, that the vessel is at anchor. So I think comparing the fuel consumption and GHG emissions that would have been had the vessel not slowed down and arrived just in time is the biggest one. But of course, then there's some other ones that are, a little bit more qualitative in terms of, looking at, schedule or human resource scheduling optimization, delays of the pilots at the boarding station, wait times at locks, for example. How much time was it saved because, the pre-arrival notification is being done electronically in the system versus provided via fax or email and then, manually entered, let's say, by a port user. So all of those types of things will certainly, play a part in the testing, but they're a little bit more I'd say qualitative versus the reduction of fuel consumption and GHG emissions as a result of just-in-time arrivals is the big one. It's the main objective of the project, which should be quantifiable.
And then when will this testing phase be done?
We plan to start it in June, and the hope is to have it conclude, the initial operational validation conclude by the end of September. We do have an obligation to the Ocean Supercluster program to submit a final testing report at the end of September. Of course, testing will continue. There's always improvements. There's always, bugs, defects, and, we want to continue testing as far into the shipping season in St. Lawrence as we can this year. But certainly we will have to submit a test report to the Ocean Supercluster by the end of September.
And do you think there'd be need to test it in other regions as well, or would these results be transferable to say if this was to be used in Port of Vancouver or elsewhere in the Atlantic ports, maybe?
Yeah, we absolutely believe that it is transferable. We're going to, do our initial testing in around the St. Lawrence using, of course, Canada Steamship lines, Laurentian Pilotage Authority, Port of Montreal. The Seawell will surely play a part as well. Validate the results there, and then the goal is in a phase two later this year is to open it up for other types of vessels and other ports in other regions. Initially in Canada, ideally, of course, the origin port could be somewhere not in Canada, but the destination port, we would like to keep it in Canada. And then after that, of course, roll it out globally would be the idea.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions from the audience. I'll do a last call out. Does anybody want to raise their hand and ask a question of Krista? Anything about this system? If you want to ask if you can get involved and get your organization involved in the testing, or if you want to ask Krista for a live demo to see how it really works, that is very kind to offer that. All right. Not seeing any questions in the chat. So is there anything else you wanted to share that you didn't get a chance to talk about yet, Krista, about the system?
Don't think so. I do want to apologize for my moment of oh my God, at the beginning of the presentation, there was an update that came up and I wasn't sure I can get it off the screen, so I couldn't see anything. So so I apologize for that.
Technology, it's there to help us most of the time.
It's great when it works.
Well, I will, yeah, I just want to, oh, I almost I'd put this in the chat and then I didn't. Um, Here is the link to all of the past events. And also, if you go to the Clear Seas website and click on events, you'll be able to register for our upcoming webinars. And I just give a little shout out. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to get more money to invest in ports, new research that's come out from Clear Seas and C40 Cities, and the Association of Canadian Port Authorities will also be joining us to talk about the essential role that ports play in the Canadian supply network and how more innovative approaches to public and private funding can help to support the ports in getting the infrastructure investments that they need to be able to play the role of facilitating trade through Canadian systems and also protecting the environment. And then 2 weeks after that, on May 6th, we will be sharing the results of the new whale report system from OceanWise, and that is looking at how ships and whales can coexist more peacefully in Canadian waters and worldwide waters as well. We'll be seeing a demonstration of that platform, how it can be customized for different users. So if you happen to be a ferry captain operating in a particular route, you can set up geofences so that you only get whale alerts around where your vessel is operating. You don't need to have alerts for the entire coast. It can be very tailored and focused. So I think that's going to be really exciting to explore, and I hope that everybody can join us for that as well. All right. Thank you so much, Krista. I really appreciate you taking the time to share the platform's progress. It sounds really exciting, and all the best for the testing phase. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. And thanks to
Thank you.
everyone for being here to participate. And yeah, I hope to see you again at a future webinar. And the recording will be made available on the Clear Seas website within the next few days.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great rest of the day.